Growing up here and the perspective that you bring to the table here?
Well, I think that because I've spent my whole life within the territory of Six Nations and have had, I think, a very broad range of understandings. I've had some parts working at the Band Council in my early years, and have recently been able to learn about the traditional history and the government and the functionings of it. And I think growing up as one of 9 children and having 8 of my own, like including my stepchildren, I think that as a mother and a grandmother, I have a lot of perspective to add to the table and protecting the rights and ensuring that the voice of women is being heard.
Do you feel angry? Are you frustrated? Are you saddened? How do you feel?
All of the above, of course. I mean, I'm very frustrated with the slow process, just like everyone else is. I'm angry that Canada has chosen to neglect its responsibilities that it took up when the Crown handed them over with its Constitution Act in '82. I have a lot of emotion, but mostly I think today that I'm very optimistic. I'm very excited about the changes that are happening. I'm very proud and I gain strength at watching our Confederacy Council grow and move in ways that we haven't in a long time. And I think that the support of the Six Nations people has been just tremendous at pushing our traditional government forward. This is what the people want. You know, we've had over 80 years of what you would call a minority government, and the majority of the Six Nations people haven't had an avenue to have their voice heard. And I think that the changes that have happened in the last 18 months have really given direction and put a whole new perspective on the Haudenosaunee as a people and who we are in asserting our sovereignty.
Do you blame people today for what happened or didn't happen 150, 200 years ago?
I don't think it's fair to put blame anywhere. I think that in today's society, and I'll speak specifically about the negotiations right now, what Canada has to do is, first of all, understand its role. And that's been a chore right from the beginning of the negotiations, because we don't have treaties with Canada. Our treaties are with the British Crown. And so what we've had to do is almost educate those negotiators as to what and how does Canada fit into this relationship. And it's not been an easy task. And so I think my anger, I guess, if you will, is more at the lack of willingness to respect that. Because even though we have signed documentation that we're sitting there according to our Truro, you know, our ancient covenants, the Silver Covenant chain, they're still trying to box us into Canadian law. They're still trying to direct us into the judicial system as opposed to that treaty relationship and that nation-to-nation level. So that's where my frustration is, and that's where I keep hammering and pulling us back to whenever it gets sidetracked.
I'm going to get into some legal matters here, so Aaron, you might jump in here. You talk about treaties based on some time ago with the British Crown. But don't things change? Aren't we talking about Canada today as it is right now?
Do you still recognize the Royal Proclamation? Do you still recognize the different things that have established Canada? Like it's the British North American Act. You can't just ignore treaties. Treaties are international. It's international law. It's binding. Nothing supersedes that. So no, you don't just put those aside. That is how our relationship works. That is who we are as a people.
Now, Aaron, you are in a very interesting situation. You tell me you've got a foot in 2 canoes. You explained this to me. You're a lawyer. You've got a practice in Toronto. You are, help me explain this in the proper vernacular. Your mother was Mohawk. Your father is Dutch German.
Correct.
How do you line up in all of this?
Well, I have a very specific role right now, and it's taking a lot of what I've grown up with and an understanding of 2 worlds. I didn't grow up on the territory. I grew up actually in Kitchener-Waterloo, so I have a very good grounding of what's out there. And then I take the grounding in the law, and I come back to the Confederacy, and I come back to the women who are part of the Confederacy, and they ask me questions. Well, why are they doing this? Or why are they turning this way with their law? And what's going on with this? So I act really as a technical advisor and almost as a scout. I'm on the front, and they direct me to say, Aaron, figure out this issue for us and tell us why they're doing this or why they're approaching it this way. Because the communication process that goes back and forth that Hazel referred to earlier, it's very difficult when you hear lawyers sitting across from the table talking around in circles. And that's what they do a lot of time. And we sit back at our caucuses, and I offer my opinion, and they choose whether or not to listen to it and to what extent. And to date, we have a good working relationship. I'm very, very proud of the fact that I am Haudenosaunee, and I'm very proud of the people I'm working with who are doing twice the job, 3 times the job of the people who are sitting across on the other side of the table with 1/10 of the resources. And it's a very good time.
You're a lawyer, educated in Ontario, in Canada, by Canadian authorities according to Canadian law. How do you juggle the laws of the two nations living
very
within
carefully.
each other? Well, yes, I bet
carefully.
you do.
I have obligations because I am a lawyer, and those obligations are clear. Equally, I have obligations as a Haudenosaunee, and to be quite honest, I have learned a lot about those obligations in the past 2 years. In some places, they're mutually compatible. I don't have to worry about it. In other places, we meet them head on, and I deal with them, and we move forward. Ultimately, what I'm trying to do in my role is assist the chiefs and the clan mothers, and I think that's what everyone here is trying to do. We are building up ourselves as much as we're dealing with developers, and we are going to go forward and deal with developers and people, but we're also dealing with ourselves, and it's a positive time.
You wanted to take another look at the Haldimand Tract map to explain a little bit more about the land in question here, and why don't you start? We're going to start with the southernmost leg on Lake Erie and move up through there. The two of you had some specific points you wanted to make.
You go.
Okay. What we wanted to do, and you see the map tracking up through red, green, and yellow, the Development Institute came up with a plan to deal generally with development on the tract. And all of this development is premised on whether or not we can get the municipalities and developers to agree. In that red zone at the bottom is where we really are not looking for any significant development whatsoever. This is where we would have our places to grow. We would create our buffer zones between oncoming development, which we see every day.